Thanks for joining us again this week. My name's Christy. If you're new here, this is Rocky Knob Farms, and today we're talking about the journey that it's taken us to get to full-time farming. So let's go. When we got married in 2015, Levi's ultimate goal was farming. Within 10 years, he wanted us to be making all of our income and supporting our family full-time from farming. So we're going to squeeze that journey between 2015 and now, 2024, into the next 10 minutes. We bought Rocky Knob Farms in 2016, and we bought it for two reasons. It was a relatively easy laying piece of ground, but more importantly, it was connected to Levi's parents. Levi's grandpa always taught his dad that you only get the opportunity to buy the land right next door once in your lifetime. So when that land came up for sale, we jumped on it. The very first thing that we had to do was figure out how we were going to make the mortgage payments on this property. At the time, Levi and I were both working, so we had to come up with something that we could do on the side. And the first thing that came to mind was a pumpkin patch. And at the time, agritourism and U-pick operations were booming. So we started a U-pick pumpkin patch and a corn maze. That fall, I had two of our local elementary schools reach out to me and want to do field trips. So we added in field trips on the day that I had off during the week. That first season was amazing. We loved getting people on the farm. I personally love interacting with the community and the public and sharing agriculture with them, and this was the perfect way to do that. In 2017, we decided that it was time for one of us to stay home. At the time, we were helping Levi's dad with his cattle. We had a little bit of produce on the side throughout the summer, and we decided to add strawberries, U-pick strawberries. The thing with U-pick strawberries is that the strawberries are planted in the fall and then harvested the following spring. So that fall, September of 2017, we planted a half an acre of strawberries that would be ready for U-pick in May of 2018. Shortly after we got that half acre of strawberries planted by hand, because we didn't know what we were doing, we found out that I was pregnant with Charlie. This was quite the shock to us, because he would be coming right in the middle of strawberry season. Thanks to some amazing friends, my sisters-in-law, my mother-in-law, my own mom who came down to stay with us for quite a while, we made it through that strawberry season. Charlie was born on May 27th, and we shut down the strawberry patch for the rest of the season on June 4th. We finished 2018 strawberry season, continued on with life as the U-pick pumpkin patch in the fall, planted another round of strawberries in the fall of 2018 for 2019, made it through 2019 strawberry season. At the end of strawberry season though, in 2019, we picked up sheep. A lot of sheep. So you might be thinking, like, how did we have the time for all these sheep, or why did we get into sheep? What made us jump into sheep? So I mentioned that in 2017, I came home. When I came home from work, came to the farm, part-time, full-time, was doing the homemaker thing, Levi's dad still had cows, and they were calving. In the winter of 2018, the cows were calving. Charlie was about 6 months old, and there was snow flying on the ground. There was a cow calving with her head downhill. If you're not familiar, they can't calve with their head downhill. It's something with the blood pressure and whatnot, and it typically doesn't end well. So I see, as I'm doing chores that morning, I see this cow out in the field, and her legs are kind of flailing around, and I'm like, man, that's weird. So I drive out there. Charlie's in the truck. The snow is flying, and there's a calf half out, and her head's downhill. There's nothing she can do. I got the calf out, but it was just me. I can't move a 1,200-pound cow by myself, let alone roll her over. Thankfully, I was able to call a neighbor who also happens to be Levi's uncle, and he was able to come down and help me pull her around enough so that her head was uphill. But that was really a turning point for us. We realized, okay, cows weren't going to work for us, especially if it was just going to be me and the kids at home. That wasn't going to be safe. We had the sheep at the house who were just really our brush management, and kind of realized are manageable animal for me. I can do a lot with sheep completely by myself, even with the kids in tow. They're just a much smaller animal, and I can kind of manhandle them if I had to. In May of 2019, we drove to Kentucky and brought home 90 sheep. There was a lot of calling with those sheep. There was a lot of learning with those sheep. Right off the bat that summer, they got into a downed cherry tree, and we had cherry poisoning, and that is something that I would never wish upon any other livestock farmer. That fall, we planted strawberries and then went into a drought. We had no water to water the strawberries to get the roots established and to get the plants growing before we were going into winter, and they were supposed to go dormant. So we got kind of creative in how we were going to water these strawberries. Then 2020 happened, and we all know what 2020 did in terms of society, but we still had a U-pick operation that we were planning to make money for. That was how we were going, to make the mortgage payments on Rocky Knob. Everybody shut down for good. Life shut down in March, and we had over an acre of strawberries coming ripe relatively quickly in May. And at the time, a lot was up in the air. People didn't really want to be around each other. Nobody really understood how the virus and how COVID kind of transpired and what you could do, what you couldn't do, what was safe, what wasn't safe. So that strawberry season, we made a lot of adjustments. We worked really closely with the health department, to add a hand washing station to make sure that nobody was reusing buckets before they were washed, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of very tedious things that we added to make sure that everybody was safe. But even with offering U-pick strawberries outside, away from people, we didn't have a great turnout. So for the fall of 2020, we moved the U-pick pumpkin stand to a self-serve stand. So Levi, myself, and Charlie worked together to pick wagon loads of pumpkins, get them washed, and put them in a stand in our driveway. And that worked so well. The community was super supportive of that, and we have never gone back. Noah was born in January of 2021, and the big change in that time frame was all that we were doing. We were doing too much. What I failed to mention before, and will explain why we were doing too much, was that those 90 ewes that we bought in May of 2019, they all lambed then in January and February of 2020. So right as the pandemic was starting and through the very beginning of the pandemic, we were lambing about 80 ewes we had come down to in a barn in just a traditional sense. They lambed in just a group pen, then we moved them into a lambing jug, and from the lambing jug we moved them into a mixing pen with other lambs and other ewes that had already lambed. Now this was awesome for me. I love lambing time, and it was my thing. Like, I really got in a groove. It gave me a lot of purpose and a big sense of satisfaction seeing lambs be born, getting them connected and bonded with the ewe, etc., etc. Doing it with Charlie wasn't so bad. He played next to me in the barn. He would hang out and take a nap in the truck while I was working. It worked out really well. But it was really labor intensive. I don't know if you're catching on to a theme here. We like to do things that are super intense for 6 weeks. When I was born, we realized that lambing like that, super intense strawberry seasons and U-pick pumpkin seasons, that wasn't fair to the kids to be stuck here at Rocky Knob. They weren't big enough to be able to go out and do their own thing, you know, go play in the woods or whatever by themselves yet. They just kind of had, but we didn't have a way to do lambing any differently. So 6 weeks after Noah was born, we started lambing. And this time we were lambing 100 ewes in the barn. And that same very intense, very hands-on, labor-intensive system that we had been doing before, and is really common to the industry. At that time, 1, I was crazy. 2, I didn't want to let it go. Being, you know, very freshly postpartum, having a newborn, I wasn't sleeping well to begin with. I might as well be up and checking lambs in the barn. But I also realized I couldn't keep doing that. Farming with little kids is no joke. It is no easy task. There are many who have come before me and have done it much better than I have done it. But it's just that season, that lambing season, with a 3-year-old and a newborn was hard, even with the help that we had. That season really showed us that this management style of lambing in a barn in a really tight window just didn't fit the stage of life that we were at with little kids. We needed something that was a little less labor intensive. So throughout 2021, we did a lot of digging and a lot of learning. How are we going to keep farming, keep growing the sheep operation like we want to, but minimize the labor that it takes? That was really, really hard for me. Like I said, lambing was my thing. I found so much joy and purpose in lambing. I don't know, I can't say anything else. That was my thing. So 2022 and 2023, we continued the self-serve pumpkin stand. We didn't do any you-pick strawberries. And we really dug in hard on how are we going to make changes that we can continue growing our sheep operation, but not work crazy hours that don't match our lifestyle with young kids. During that time, we did so much learning. We were consuming everything we possibly could. Learning how to lamb on pasture. How do you run a business? Levi has a business degree. He has an agribusiness degree, and we were learning all kinds of new things that we had no idea even existed. We were watching YouTube videos, reading books, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts. If it was out there, we were trying to find it. We had found a couple YouTube channels that were kind of just mind-blowing. How were these people running these huge numbers of animals on such small acreage of grass and for almost the whole year? Like, how was that possible? We thought, this is what we want to learn. It wasn't near as intensive as lambing in a barn. We were already honing in and refining our rotational grazing skills. So really what we had to figure out was, how do we lamb on pasture? How does that even work? Especially in our climate. You know, traditionally, lambs are born between January and March. Well, here, it's like 30 degrees and snowing in January through March. That's why we've always lambed in a barn. During that time, we learned that lambing on pasture was possible. So in 2023, we plan to back up our lambing date until April 16th. So instead of lambing in February and March, we were going to back it up until April 16th and lamb from April 16th through about the end of May. That way we could lamb on pasture. And we did. It worked so well. And that lambing season really proved to us that we can do it. We can make this happen. So in July of 2023, the breakthrough kind of continued, and between business books that we were listening to or reading, YouTube channels, we were watching a couple of mentors that we had found, and we were asking tons and tons of questions. We thought, okay, we're going to do this. We are going to figure out how to do this. Funding was our big struggle. How are we going to fund a whole year worth of life before we get that first sale check from those lambs? We knew that a bank was going to look at us like we were crazy. We went to a traditional ag lender to invest in more breeding sheep. We have a private investor who is helping kind of fund the cash flow and the salary for the first year until we get to December this year and sell all of our lambs and make some money. When you find the path that you're supposed to be on, it's not that it's not rocky, and it's not that it's, smooth and super easy to walk on, but things fall into place. We have an unbelievable support system in our family, in our friends, in mentors that we've found. Our faith in God has gotten so much stronger over the last year, and our church family has been unbelievably supportive as well. So we got all those things lined up. We figured out health insurance, and Levi's last official day of working for somebody else was Friday, November 17th. That following Monday, the 20th, we drove to Pennsylvania, picked up a group of 100 sheep, and that was the first group that we brought in our what we call the sheep expansion. As of today, we have one more group of sheep lined up to finish ironing out the logistics and how we're going to get them here, and we have officially completed the sheep expansion part of our, what do you call it? Our plan. So our plan to get to full-time farming and full-time income was growing from a group of 60 ewes, 60 really good quality genetic ewes, to a group of 450. So we have bought in a lot of sheep. It'll take us time to work through all the kinks and finding those problems and kind of sorting them out. But we're really excited. Once we get those sheep home, we'll look forward to starting to lamb in May. May 1st is our targeted lambing date this year. And then we're just going to grow on grass. We'll continue the rotational grazing like we've been doing. We'll find extra lease ground to graze weaned lambs on. The plan is to sell direct to a packing plant in December. That's the plan. From two young, inexperienced kids in 2015 to a little bit older, inexperienced sheep farmers in 2024. That's how we got here. We are excited. We're nervous. There's a lot of anxiety in certain decisions and hashing out those decisions over and over and over, trying to find the right answer. But when it comes down to it, we find a lot of peace when we pray over things, when we share our concerns and our struggles with other people, and get there. I linked all of the major things that we found super helpful in our journey down below if you're interested in them. The resources are out there. Sometimes it just takes a lot of digging to find them. So I encourage any of you who are interested in going full-time to check out those resources. Always feel like you can email us or message us, ask any questions. We are a completely open book because we want other people to find the freedom and find the happiness, even with the anxiety and, unknown that comes with business ownership and full-time farming that we've found. If you haven't already, I hope that you'll like this video and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if there's something else that you'd really like to see or questions that you have. And we hope that you'll stick around and walk this journey with us as we navigate full-time farming.